Hello everyone, today I will continue telling the story of Dieu Hân, the single mother. I hope you enjoy watching the video. This morning it rained gently, with the raindrops falling softly like a melodious tune. Hân woke up early and gently opened the window to let the fresh air from the rain pour in. She looked out into the garden, where durian fruits had fallen all over the ground due to the storm last night. Each fruit was large and nearly ripe, with their characteristic aroma filling the air, making it impossible for her to delay any longer. Determined not to let them go to waste, Hân quickly stepped out into the garden, carefully picking up each durian. The outer skin of the fruits had started to crack, revealing the golden, ripe segments inside, looking very appealing. Hân carefully separated each segment, the distinct smell filling the air. She wrinkled her nose slightly but couldn't resist the allure of the fruit. As she gazed over the garden, the morning rain still hadn't stopped, creating an unusually quiet and relaxing atmosphere. After finishing the harvest, Hân began preparing the meal. She put bones into a pot to simmer, adding some spices and fresh coconut water to enhance the natural sweetness. The fragrant durian segments were added to the pot, stirred gently for even distribution. The smell of durian combined with the sweet broth from the bones and coconut made the kitchen feel warm and inviting. Hân imagined how this dish would surprise and delight her family. When the dish was almost done, Hân simmered the soup a bit more to thicken it, then placed fresh shrimp into the pot, steaming them to perfection. The durian soup with simmered bones and shrimp looked delicious, with the sweet flavor of the durian blending perfectly with the shrimp, offering a new experience for the family's breakfast. Hân ladled the soup into bowls and carefully brought it outside to her mother. Her mother looked at her with a satisfied smile and said, "I didn't expect this dish to be so delicious." "Thank you, my dear." Hân smiled back, feeling happy that this simple meal brought joy to her mother. After feeding the shrimp, Hân gently picked them up one by one, placing them in their small beds and began to sing a lullaby. Her soft, gentle voice spread through the air, gradually lulling the shrimp into a peaceful sleep. She looked at the shrimp, feeling content as she saw them calm and healthy. Hân knew that this was part of her effort, caring for them with love and attention every day. Despite the occasional hard work, it always brought a sense of peace. Moreover, watching the shrimp grow strong and healthy, she felt immense happiness. It was the result of countless hours of hard work, and a part of her life that she had dedicated to for so many years. After finishing her work with the shrimp, Hân stood up, stretched, and decided to go into the garden to continue her tasks. The garden door opened, and the fresh air from the early morning rain still lingered. Water droplets remained on the leaves, releasing a fine mist. She gently walked through each row of plants, checking the garden's condition, while admiring the first flowers of the season in full bloom. The fresh atmosphere made Hân feel comfortable and relaxed, as if it were rejuvenating her for the new day ahead. She began working, pulling weeds and tending to each plant and fruit tree in the garden. Each time her hands touched the green leaves, pulling out the weeds, she felt a small joy. Every step she took in the garden was like a way for her to renew herself, to immerse in nature, feeling the rhythm of life, and noticing even the smallest changes in the earth and sky. She worked without hurry or worry, and every moment in the garden brought her an overwhelming sense of tranquility. Time seemed to slow down, with only the distant sound of birds singing, the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze, and the dripping of water from the branches after the rain. Every small sound reminded her that life continued, but in the garden, everything seemed to pause. This feeling of quiet and serenity made Hân forget all the worries and fatigue of life. She leaned against a tree trunk, closed her eyes for a moment, letting all the chaos fade away. She gently stroked the green leaves, smiling as she saw the new shoots growing strong and healthy. Each plant, each flower, each leaf was an essential part of her life. The work in the garden was not just a hobby or a daily chore, but a place where she found peace and a sense of connection with nature. She always believed that the garden was an indispensable part of her life, where every time she touched it, she felt a deep connection with the earth and with life itself. Occasionally she paused, looked up at the clear sky after the rain. The thin clouds were dispersing, leaving behind a fresh atmosphere. The light rain had passed, but its traces remained in every droplet, in every beam of light shining down on the garden. Hân felt as if she had been reborn, as if the rain had washed away all the tired thoughts in her mind. It was a day like any other. But for Han, every day spent in the garden brought new emotions. And deep down, she knew that no matter what changed, this garden, with all the love and effort she put into it, would always be the place that brought her peace and true happiness. After feeding the shrimp, Han gently picked them up one by one, placed them in their small beds, and began to sing a lullaby. Her soft, soothing voice spread throughout the air, gradually lulling the shrimp into a deep sleep. Han looked at the shrimp, feeling content as she saw them calm and healthy. She knew this was part of her effort, loving and caring for them every day. Despite the occasional hard work, it always brought a sense of peace. Each time she saw the shrimp grow strong and healthy, Han felt the happiness she could bring them, just like with adopted children, offering her love and care. After finishing her work with the shrimp, Han stood up, stretched, and decided to head to the garden to continue her tasks. The garden door opened, and the fresh air from the early morning rain still lingered. Water droplets remained on the leaves, creating a fine mist. Han gently walked past the rows of plants, checking the state of the vegetable garden while admiring the first flowers of the season in full bloom. The colors of the flowers in the garden seemed like a reward for her patience and meticulous care. Everything in the garden was blooming, with the vibrant colors of the flowers making the atmosphere feel fresh, like a living painting that nature had gifted. Han began her work, pulling weeds and tending to each plant and fruit tree in the garden. She felt as if she was becoming one with nature, working slowly and without worry. Time seemed to slow down, with only the sound of birds singing, the rustling of leaves, and the dripping of water from the branches after the rain. Every gentle movement Han made while trimming branches and leaves brought a sense of tranquility. She didn't need to think much about the other things in life because the garden was where Han found stillness and peace. Working in the garden was not just about tending to the plants, but also a way for Han to take care of her own soul. Today, Han harvested a large bunch of bananas, each fruit hanging heavy, ripe, and plump. She was delighted that her care for the banana plants had finally borne fruit. It was the result of many days of careful attention, from watering to pruning the plants. These banana bunches brought her joy and pride because she had mastered everything around her. However, while she was busy picking each banana to bring home, a heavy rain suddenly began to fall. Strong winds blew through, rustling the banana leaves and causing them to fall to the ground. Han hurriedly carried the bunch of bananas back to the house, trying to avoid the strong winds approaching. She walked quickly, unable to stop thinking about the coming storm. The rain poured harder, turning the sky into a dull gray. The strong winds and rain made the air feel heavy, as if the universe was bracing itself for a challenge. But Han remained steadfast, hoping the storm would soon pass without causing too much damage to the people in the area. She walked through the downpour like a small figure, but with a heart full of strength, unafraid. Upon returning home, Han looked out the window and saw the waves of water crashing onto the shore, the wind howling through the trees in the garden. She sighed, her eyes briefly filled with concern, but then she reassured herself that she had to maintain faith. Storms were inevitable, but she knew people could face any challenge with resilience. No matter how hard things got, Han always believed that the resilience of the people would help them overcome everything. The raindrops outside the window were like a test, and Han had become accustomed to facing difficulties. She carefully placed the bunch of bananas in the corner of the garden, then went inside to prepare for the challenges ahead. Han knew that she couldn't avoid everything, but at least she would do everything she could to protect what she loved. Like all the other people, Han could only hope the storm would pass quickly without leaving too much damage. She always believed that people would have enough strength to stand firm against any storm, whether natural or in life. The police officer Dan hadn't appeared in a long time. Today, he decided to visit Han, but before going to her house, he stopped by Ms. Men's place to buy a bag of sweet cakes for little Tom, whom he knew was fond of them. Tom was the child Han always cared for so lovingly, and Ms. Men was always aware of little details like that. She looked at him, smiled warmly, and asked, "What brings you here? You're suddenly visiting me." He smiled faintly and replied, "I just stopped by, bought some cakes for Tom, and then I'll head over to see Han." Ms. Men understood his intention, and the old woman's eyes glistened with perceptiveness. She wasn't one to pry or ask about others' personal lives, but from Dan's gestures and words, she could tell what was on his mind. They chatted for a while, talking about work and life in the countryside, but gradually the conversation shifted to Han. Ms. Men, with her keen sense, noticed that every time Han was mentioned, Dan's eyes lit up, and he couldn't hide his special affection for her. Slowly, he began to confess his feelings for Han. His words, full of sincerity, made Ms. Men listen attentively. Dan spoke about the times he thought of Han, how his heart would race every time he saw her smile. Even though he was a police officer, always expected to be strong and tough, each time he stood near Han, he felt a softness in his heart. She was a simple girl, yet she had the ability to stir his heart in a way he couldn't explain. Ms. Men listened quietly, her gaze softening, and placed a hand on his shoulder as she said, "You're a good man. Don't keep your feelings hidden. If you really like Han, you have to tell her. Don't let time pass without expressing yourself. Lately, I've been seeing Tan around Han's house. If you don't speak up, you might lose her." Dan stood still for a moment, a vague sense of fear rising in his chest. Tan, the engineer Han often met, had been a part of her life longer than he had. Dan felt anxious, wondering if he had missed his chance. Would Han realize his feelings, or had she grown so accustomed to Tana's attention that she no longer noticed him? Ms. Min continued, "Life doesn't wait for anyone. If you really want Han, let her know how you feel. Things can change if you dare to step outside your comfort zone. If you don't act, you'll forever watch others take what you desire." Her advice awakened something in Dan. He felt a force inside him urging him to act, a glimmer of light within his heart. He could no longer live in fear. Indeed, life doesn't wait. If he didn't face his emotions now, he might never have the chance to share the most important things with Han. Finally, Dan made up his mind. Today, when he saw Han, he wouldn't keep his heart hidden anymore. No matter the outcome, he wouldn't regret having the courage to express himself. He would tell her about the feelings he had kept inside, about the times he wanted to speak out but didn't dare. He knew he couldn't keep such emotions bottled up forever. He couldn't let them slip away because of hesitation or fear of losing the one he loved. Dan stood up, thanked Ms. Men for her sincere advice, and left. His heart beat stronger than ever. He didn't know if Han would feel the same way when he saw her, but at least he was prepared to face whatever might happen. As he approached Han's house, his mind raced with thoughts. How would she react? Would she accept his confession, or would she turn him down, leaving him with emotions he had never dared express? But no matter what, he couldn't continue living in silence, because the only way to find out if love could begin was to step forward and speak out about what he had been holding inside. Thinking this way, Dan decided to go see Han and confess his feelings. His heart raced, and the chaotic thoughts in his head made it hard to stay calm. He had been determined for a long time, but now as he stepped out of his house, each step felt heavier. These emotions had been hidden for too long, and he no longer wanted them to eat away at his heart. Dan knew that if he didn't speak up, he would never know if Han could sense his feelings. As he walked along the road to Han's house, something unexpected happened. He ran into Tan, someone he knew also had feelings for Han. Tan was an engineer who often visited Han's garden, taking care of it and chatting with her whenever he could. They had been friends, but now things were different. The two of them looked at each other for a moment, and the tension in the air was immediate. It seemed that every step, every glance was filled with unspoken words. Dan looked at Tan, his gaze betraying his frustration. He couldn't stand Tana's silence anymore. He knew clearly that if Tan didn't step up, he would. While Tan stood still, silently watching, Dan couldn't hold back his displeasure. "Why do you keep hesitating, Tan? You have feelings for Han, but you're too afraid to say anything. Don't you see? I've given you plenty of chances, but you keep procrastinating." Tan furrowed his brow, his gaze turning cold. The tension between the two men only grew. Tan looked at Dan, annoyed, and then spoke. "What are you talking about? What do you mean by giving me chances? Don't you understand? I'm not someone who easily confesses their feelings. But I won't let someone else take her away." Dan felt a surge of anger rise within him. He couldn't stand there any longer and let Tan make everything so unclear. He had real feelings for Han, and he couldn't just wait forever. Dan couldn't bear seeing Tan continue to stand by without speaking out. "So how long are you going to wait? Are you just going to stay silent like this?" Don't wait until it's too late. Han won't wait for you forever. Then in a flash, Tan charged at him, and a loud slap echoed across the air, hitting Dan's face. The shock and pain made Dan stagger, but he didn't back down. His anger, his frustration, everything exploded. The two men stood facing each other, looking at each other with tense eyes, as if ready for a real confrontation. A loud shout from behind suddenly broke the tense silence. It was Tana's father, stepping out of the house with an angry face, shouting, "What's going on here? Are you two going to fight? Stop it right now." Tana's father rushed forward, raising his hand to separate them. Both Dan and Tan fell silent, neither saying another word. Tan lowered his head, his face filled with embarrassment. Dan didn't say anything either, silently turning and walking away, leaving behind the fruitless argument. His heart felt torn, pained, and confused. Everything seemed to have spiraled out of control, and now he didn't know what to do. As Dan walked out of Tana's yard, his thoughts still didn't stop. His heart remained restless about Han, and now he felt more confused than ever. Both Tan and he had feelings for her, but neither of them dared to confess. They stood face to face with their feelings but couldn't find the courage to speak. Dan wondered if he could move forward with Han, or if he would let Tan have the chance. Or could he silently give up and watch Tan continue to pursue her? Meanwhile, Tan sat in front of Han's house, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. The conflict inside him made it impossible for him to think clearly. He felt the rising anxiety, the inner tug-of-war between his feelings and his logic. Could he step forward and say what he had kept hidden for so long, or would he let Dan take the first step? Tan looked toward Han's house, his mind a whirlwind of confusion. He didn't know what to do, but the one thing he was sure of was that he couldn't keep living in silence. Both Tan and Dan were standing at a major crossroads in their lives, and each step they took would determine Han's future. Both were anxious, yet neither could find a way to resolve this situation. Han was the one they both wanted, but neither of them dared to speak. Could love emerge from moments like this? Or would it be lost due to fear and a lack of courage? The answer could only be found when one of the three of them dared to confront their true feelings. Han had never truly known the feelings that Tan and Dan had for her. She had always felt their care and attention, but was it simply the concern of friends? Or was it real love? She couldn't be sure, as everything still felt unclear in her heart. Tan, with his calm demeanor and intelligence as an engineer, was always someone Han could rely on when she needed advice. He often appeared at just the right moment, listening and sharing thoughts about work and life, making Han feel safe. But he didn't express his feelings too openly. Han could only sense a subtle difference whenever she looked into Tana's eyes, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Then there was Dan, the young police officer, strong and full of passion. Every time he was by her side, she felt his protective and decisive nature. Dan was quiet, but his eyes always conveyed sincerity and warmth, making Han wonder if he felt something special for her. His gestures of care, though simple, made her feel like there was something different, as if he saw her as more than just a friend. However, Han couldn't clearly define her feelings for either of the two men. She had once gone through a broken relationship in the past, and the scars from that experience were still fresh. She was afraid that if she opened her heart again, she would face disappointment and pain. That's why, despite sensing the special care from Tan and Dan, she didn't dare to take things further with them. Both Tan and Dan were struggling with their own emotions. Tan felt like he had been too slow, that he had given Dan too many chances to confess his feelings to Han, but hadn't done anything about it. He couldn't understand why Dan kept hesitating and not speaking out. Tan wondered if he had missed his opportunity because of his own reluctance. As for Dan, he knew he couldn't remain silent any longer. He clearly felt that Han had a special interest in him, but he wasn't sure if it was love or just friendship. He always wondered if he spoke first, whether Han would accept his feelings. Would she be willing to open her heart to him after the pain of her past? One day, the two men, Tan and Dan, happened to meet on the road leading to Han's house. This encounter wasn't by chance. It was the result of all the thoughts and dilemmas they had been carrying inside for a long time. Both of them shared the same question, but neither dared to confess to Han. Dan looked at Tan, his eyes full of seriousness. "Don't you see? Han deserves to know what we feel for her." Ton nodded, but his gaze didn't soften. He knew that if he didn't speak up, there might not be another chance. But Ton also didn't want to create conflict between him and Dan. They stood there, only a few steps apart, but neither of them dared to speak. Thoughts spun in their heads and time seemed to slow down. Although they both knew that Han deserved to know their feelings, they couldn't find a way to express it. Meanwhile, Han still hadn't realized the quiet feelings of the two men. She saw them only as friends, never imagining that both Ton and Dan carried unspoken emotions. She felt their care, but never thought it was love, and that's why she still couldn't open her heart. And so, everything remained as silent thoughts within Ton and Dan. They couldn't express what they wanted to say, couldn't open up to Han for fear that doing so would burden her with emotions she wasn't ready to accept. As for Han in her own world, she remained uncertain about their feelings. The questions and dilemmas still had no answers. Love, if it existed, would come slowly, or perhaps it would never come if no one dared to speak.
Hello mọi người, lại là mình đây, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình nha. Chúc mọi người một ngày vui vẻ và hạnh phúc. Hiện tại kênh của mình đang kể về những câu chuyện của những người mẹ đơn thân sinh sống ở Việt Nam. Những video của mình thì được phát hành vào lúc 7 giờ tối tại khung giờ Việt Nam. Mọi người nhớ chú ý đón xem nha. Hy vọng rằng những video của mình sẽ mang đến niềm vui cho mọi người. Và đặc biệt là nếu mọi người thấy video của mình hay và hấp dẫn thì nhớ like, share, bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất. Nhớ để lại cho mình một nhận xét ở dưới phần bình luận để những video mới mình sẽ làm hay hấp dẫn hơn để cho mọi người xem. Và nếu thấy kênh của mình hay thì nhớ chia sẻ giúp mình để kênh của mình ngày càng phát triển hơn. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video của mình. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người nha.